Welcome back to the In Chamber. I'm your host, Tom Schuman. If you've been a regular participant in Indiana Chamber human resources events over the years, you've probably heard from today's guest on at least one occasion. If you've ever sought guidance on HR or talent strategies, leadership issues, or executive coaching, our guest just may have been part of that equation also. The good news is whether you've heard from her before or this is your initial experience, you're in for a treat. Her knowledge is only matched by her enthusiasm. Andrea Butcher, president of HRD Advisory Group, welcome to the In Chamber.
Thank you, Tom. I'm so glad to be here. And thanks for doing what you do. I love your shows. You're such a good host. So I'm looking forward to an energizing conversation today.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to jump right in with the question of the day, and then we'll back up, slow down, adjust, fill in some gaps. But Andrea, you participated in one of our Chamber Road to Recovery webinars in mid-May. And I asked at that time, what's the shift been like and what have you heard from your clients? So how did things change from, say, mid-March when we started in the current pandemic to mid-May? Now it's early July. And as we have this conversation, what are the top questions, concerns today compared to 2 months ago, or maybe even 4 months ago when we started?
The sentiment that came to mind as you were talking is the hits just keep on coming. Right in the midst of trying to figure out back to work strategies, suddenly there was the civil unrest that emerged with the racial injustices, and all of a sudden leaders again had to pivot to, okay, we're in the midst of a challenge, and now we have increasing tensions within our workforce. How do we lead through that? Leaders are tired. It's hard. There's a lot of uncertainty, and the combination of those things naturally create a lot of challenge in the business. The thing that I have been so impressed with is how agile leaders have been and willing to address the challenge in front of them. In May when we were talking about how organizations adapted so quickly to working from home. And I've seen the same thing with the racial injustices that have popped up, is leaders responding in the midst of not knowing what to do. A conversation I've had over and over with CEOs and executive HR leaders and other leaders in businesses is, I don't really know how to lead through this, but I'm doing it anyways because it feels like the right thing to do. That's refreshing, and isn't that what leadership is? The root of the word lead is to go, to guide, to travel somewhere. And we are traveling a lot in the unknown right now. And it takes faith and fearlessness and in order to say, you know what, I don't really know what to do. There's no playbook for how to lead right now, but I'm gonna step into it.
So we're doing a different type of traveling. We're not doing that physical traveling to our faraway locations, unfortunately, but we're traveling new areas of leadership within our own organizations. I'm going to go a little deeper on that uncertainty you mentioned. In a couple of episodes ago, we had a conversation with Elaine Beadle, talk about uncertainty in her new role, Indiana Destination Development Corporation, starting a new state agency with the uncertainty that's taking place. And at the chamber, when we talk uncertainty, it's often financial. Businesses are not sure what to do with uncertainty that's taking place financially. But now we're in a whole new situation. Again, how do people adapt to that challenge with the additional uncertainty on top of what's currently taking place?
Yeah, it's like driving in the fog, isn't it? Because of the unprecedented nature of this challenge, there's a lot of advantages of that, and there's a lot of disadvantages of that. I mean, I think obviously the disadvantages are just the unknown and the lack of expertise in leading through anything like this. But think about that, like where there's lack of expertise, there's an opportunity to shape and create. I'm engaged in some work right now around shaping what HR will look like going forward. A lot of HR leaders were coming to us and asking me, like, what do you think it'll be like? And my challenge to them is, what do you want it to be? Leaders shape the future. So this is the exciting part about the uncertainties. We have an opportunity to shape it. So I think it's important that that leaders think about that with intentionality. In our business, I'll just use our business as an example. We are experts in leadership development and have proven processes for building leadership capability inside of organizations. And so we have done quite a bit of work in the diversity and inclusion space around creating an inclusive environment. Because if you look at the leadership skills in the literature, they naturally create an inclusive environment that's one of building trust. But we've in the era of what's happening in the world right now, we've shifted our work to really focus on the specific leadership behaviors that drive inclusion. So that's an example of, in the midst of uncertainty, taking work that you do or an expertise that you have and shaping it to fit the needs of the market or the needs of the people that you're serving.
Yeah, Andrea, I'm going to go from one word in uncertainty to another one in uncomfortable. As I've tried to listen to discussions and educate myself on the racial equality question, it's one of the terms I keep hearing about is it's an uncomfortable conversation. So whether it is that racial equality or other things related to the pandemic, how do you advise a leader to take the uncomfortable and make it as comfortable as possible for others?
Yeah, well, it starts with you, doesn't it, and your own comfort level. So I think if you're modeling the way, that's naturally going to inspire others to step into the discomfort. It's also your mind. For me, it's my mindset around the challenge. So we have an opportunity to do some really great work with a Latin American based business, and it's a challenge for us. I was on a call last night with our executive team at 8 p.m. and thinking like, gosh, are we up for this? And right on the heels of that, my perspective was, what an incredible opportunity to learn something new. It is going to be a challenge. I'm not going to have all the answers. And so I have to step in as a leader. I have to step in with arms wide open and surrender to that. And also balance that with all the experience that I do have. Like that gives me confidence in knowing that while I've not been in this exact situation before, I'm up for it. It's something new. It's just this morning on my podcast, Being at Work, I hosted Kate Maxwell, who's a director at Raytheon Technologies, and the whole theme of her podcast over and over throughout her career, she has put herself in uncomfortable positions. And she talked about how that has served her so well. And she said, as leaders, you have to raise yourself up to the hard stuff. That's where growth happens. And that's where opportunity is. So I think it's mindset. And then what are you modeling for the people around you? How are you talking about the challenge? That sets the tone for how others will lead through it.
Oh, what a great example, as you said, of your podcast conversation. So Being at Work focuses on leaders telling their stories, turning points in their careers or life-changing moments. So you bring the guest on, they talk about that. Talk about, Andrea, what you learned from being on the other side of those conversations.
Oh, well, I could ask you the same question, right? You get that, just how valuable, and because there's so much goodness that comes out of stories, and you get that as a podcast host. We set out last year when we launched our show, we wanted to create a space for leaders to talk about the really hard moments and what they learned through that. So we call them pivotal moments, as you said. And yeah, there are definitely, we're a year in, so we've had about 50, it's a weekly interview that we launched. And so we've had about 50 guests. And the couple of key themes that have merged over and over and over are just what I was saying a minute ago, like lean into the challenge, step into the opportunity. Almost, Tom, this idea of like, why not? Why not? What do you have to lose? Like, why not give it a shot? I've heard that.
Is it a little bit easier for people to say why not now in these times?
Yeah, good point. That goes back to our previous conversation, right? Is yeah, when there's lack of expertise and there's uncertainty, like it's a time for experimentation for certain, because it's all risky, isn't it? So might as well go for it.
Yeah.
The
And when
the
I
other
want,
key the other key theme that I've heard over and over and over, and it's at the heart of leadership. Leadership is an affair of the heart. And so not surprisingly, as I'm talking to leaders about hard moments, it's their relationships that they leaned on. It's the relationships that have added so much meaning and fulfillment to their lives, that giving to others, pouring into others, having connection, which is part of why this is such a challenging time. Is look at how we're trying to connect, right, via Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is you're using. We're trying to connect through these little squares. I don't think that's how we were meant to connect.
it
So
is a
the theme
totally,
of relationships, is
totally
something that comes out.
right, totally different than what we're all used to. Well, Andrew, in addition to your podcast, during the pandemic, you've added the daily dose, short messages for people to think about as they work their way through. I want to ask you about one in particular, probably because I'm guilty too often of doing exactly the opposite. But a recent one I listened to, it was titled "Walk Slowly Through the Crowd." Expand on that one a little bit, if you will, and why that's so important.
Oh, I love the idea of that. Yeah, one of the things I think we're getting right is the titles of our daily doses. So these are different than the weekly show. These are short leadership lessons, 2 to 3 minutes long. And I get inspiration from the leaders that I get to interact with every day. So just a couple of days before I recorded that episode, I was with an executive team, um, a utility company that I've worked with for the last year, and their head of sales was talking about a mantra that he has, because he's a really fast-paced, results-driven leader. He found himself like going out to the plant and just running through the plant to get exactly what he needed. And what he really missed out on was the connection, the relationships we were just talking about. And so a mantra he has is to walk slowly through the crowd. And it reminds him to slow down, take it in, pay attention to what's happening around him. And he takes that with him everywhere, not only in the plant, but at home and in all of his interactions.
So a critical message in the workplace and beyond.
Yeah, walk slowly through the crowd.
So Andrew, in the introduction, described some of the areas you focus on, certainly talent strategies, executive coaching, leadership, all related, but of course slightly different. So a couple quick questions of the various things that you do. Do you have a favorite? Is there one you can say, this is what I really thrive on?
Yeah, what a great question. The thing that comes up for me is the word coach. I think naturally have such a passion for developing the potential within people. You bring me a dream, Tom, and I am going to encourage the crap out of that until you accomplish it. It's so fun to come alongside leaders, help them to play out their vision. And the thing that's so great as a coach is I don't have to show up with any answers. Coaching is, I've always described a leadership coach, as very simply a challenging encourager. And so it's that combination of challenge and push with being a cheerleader around the strengths that you bring and the value that you bring and lifting people up. And so if I think about my role as a business leader, as I love creating forums for people to come together and learn and grow and connect. It all goes back to just my love of coaching and the process of coaching too. Having gone through a formal executive coaching certification many years ago, um, it's interesting now. There's so many people that coach in various ways, and I just so believe in the power of coaching. As a leader and a coach, I would never not have a coach. There's a lot of people in my life that play that role. A couple of people formally that I call on when I need specific coaching in specific areas. But it's taking someone from current reality to vision and just helping map out that process and then providing accountability and encouragement and support along the way. So I have a real passion for the coaching process.
Well, some of those areas I mentioned, again, strategy, talent strategies, the coaching, the rebranding of HR, part of what you do. When you look at the organization side of the equation, what's the most difficult maybe for organizations to be able to either, accept or adapt to some of the things that they need to learn and do?
Surprisingly, I think it's the talent strategy. Every day I talk to CEOs who have such a passion for their business and such a passion for their people, but they've not connected the dots formally and really thought about what part do the people play in driving to the results that we're trying to get. One of the reasons I have such a passion for rebranding HR is I think we overcomplicate talent, and a lot of talent processes have become hindrances. Performance management processes are a good example of that. Like, who have you ever known, Tom, that has said, like, I love performance review time?
It's an area where I think we've made a lot of progress over the years, but there's probably still more to do.
Yes, yes,
Refine it.
most definitely. But I see organizations really struggle with that. And one of the things we do is come alongside clients to help them simplify that process. Just identify, what are the key roles in the business and who is the key talent in your business that you want to focus on retaining? What are those overall cultural components of your business that drive engagement across the business? Even if you just answer those three questions, you've got a good start to a talent strategy.
So don't overcomplicate it, at least at the beginning. Andrea, there's one of the phrases that we hear, again, more often today maybe than in the past, is we're in this together. The key is my question for you as you laugh is, how do we turn that from a phrase or just a rallying cry into a strategy? What do we do with that phrase to make it really work?
Well, the reason I laugh is because you ask anyone that has served on one of my teams in any organization that I've led within, and they will say, like, that is Andrea's mantra. I've always said that. Even, I still get text messages from employees that were a part of my team 10 years ago, and they use that phrase. And so for me, it's a very personal phrase, but it's also so simple. Really the meaning for me is we can't do it alone. Like, we were meant to be in relationship. That's how we grow. That's how we get results. And it's a reminder that I need you, it's also a reminder that your success is my success. One of my core values is abundance. And I've always believed that there is more than enough for everyone. And when you're successful and I'm celebrating you, I'm ultimately lifting myself up because of our connection, because we're in this together. That's what it means to me.
Is that an area that, again, you have to remind leaders from time to time that how they have to really focus on the other people's success to help make them successful?
Yeah, good point. Because I think because there's a vulnerability in that we're in this together. That and certainly there's a perfectionist, I got this mindset that comes out. I've experienced that a lot personally as well. And then I quickly remind myself that no, I do need other people here. Yeah, well, I think a big part of my growth over the last few years is just letting go of having answers. It goes back to the certainty, and I have shown up with my big old opinions and my big old perspectives, and there's lots of ways of looking at situations, and I really don't have any answers. I have a lot of thoughts and perspectives, and so just being less hard-edged about the things I believe and the things that I think. They're just my thoughts, right? They could be completely wrong and not helpful at all for anyone else. So framing them more tentatively has served me well as a leader. There's a humility in that has been really helpful for me.
All right, Andrea, I want to go back a little bit. A little bit about you. You earned degrees at Indiana State University. Go Sycamores in psychology and HR development. And on that LinkedIn profile I mentioned earlier, with the different areas you focus on, your first full-time job after college at Premier Farnell.
Oh, goodness.
Talk about Premier Farnell, and what'd you learn at that time that still has an impact on what you do today?
Well, young Andrea showed up at Premier Farnell, so bright-eyed and ready to rule the world.
And then, now you are ruling the world. Congratulations.
Oh, I don't know. I'm doing my best, Tom, just as we all are. Doing my best with what I have where I am. So when I think about Premier Farnell, I even got just such warm feelings in my heart thinking about my time there. I was there for about 8 years. And so the relationships, obviously, I still have some just great connections in the UK. So it was a global role. So they had me in the interview process. They had me there's our business is headquartered in London. And so you'll probably be doing some international travel. Are you okay with that? Am I okay with that?
I was going to say, how long did it take to answer that question?
Yes. So it was phenomenal. The business, it was an electronics business, electronics component business, B2B business. And the business was booming. And I came in at a time where we were really investing in human resource talent and capabilities. And after I had been there for probably about 8 months, and you said, like, I was on the heels of this master's degree in human resource development. A big concentration of that was leadership development, building leadership capability. And so naturally, I noticed opportunities there across this global business. There were, pockets of learning, and HR business partners doing some things, and sales doing some things, and product doing some training. But there was no centralized learning function. So about 8 months after I'd been there, a guy named Ken Jokum came into the business. And Ken was such a breath of fresh air because he had led huge enterprise HR, Abbott Labs, Shell, just to name two. And he definitely recognized my passion and my just genuine enthusiasm for the opportunity. But I was right out of school. I had no idea what to do. But I went to him and said, hey, here's a gap that I've seen. And he basically said, yeah, well, let's fill that gap. Do you want to head that up? So maybe, less than a year into my tenure there, I became the manager of learning and performance improvement. I remember I was a manager of people all over the world, had no idea what I was doing. But I mean, it's such a, looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, it's such a great example of a leader seeing potential in an emerging leader and inviting me to the table. And he did such a good job of mentoring me throughout my career there, coming alongside me. I'll never forget one of our first assignments in that role was I led a global change management initiative. And so was literally traveling all over the world doing these change management programs. And he invited me in to present to the executive team on the success of that. And oh my gosh, Tom, I bombed it. It was awful. I never presented to an executive team. I'm 24 years old and talking about how much I loved the program and totally missed, know what your audience wants. And I did share stories of successes we were seeing. And so what he helped me do is helped me translate those into financial results, helped me translate those stories into results that the executive team would really appreciate. But I remember his coaching on that. He was always so gentle and met me where I was. And so that's a big takeaway from my time at Premier Farnell is the mentoring and the opportunities that I got there.
Yeah, I guess what a great opportunity at an early stage in your career. Yeah, Andrea, I mentioned the word enthusiasm in introducing you, and you've mentioned it a couple times. You've also mentioned passion, which you clearly exhibit. Everybody's different. So those qualities, do they come naturally in people, do you think? Or can you help people at least move in that direction to be more enthusiastic, to be more passionate?
Well, it depends on, are you asking about the expression of passion or enthusiasm? Because I think certainly as human beings, we all have passions and things that are important to us and things we get excited about. The expression of those looks different across leaders. Yeah, I get, one of my strengths is my positivity. I get a lot of feedback around the energy that I bring to projects and clients and my team. And I'm grateful for that strength. There's a lot of weaknesses that I also bring. So it's important for me to know both and leverage both. But one thing I'll say about the expression of passion, there's a leadership model that we use called the leadership challenge. And the researchers behind this leadership model say that leadership is not about personality, it's about behavior. And I really appreciate that perspective because it allows everyone to lead with the strengths that they have. It allows everyone to be authentic and get to know, like, who am I naturally, and what behaviors do I want to demonstrate regardless of my personality. So for an example, encourage the heart is one of the practices of exemplary leadership in this model. And so the authors basically say, like, you may not be naturally encouraging, and the behaviors are not worded in a go around expressing your positivity. The behaviors are worded in ways like see the individual excellence in people and acknowledge that. Praise specifically for the good works that others are doing. So those are behaviors that any leader can demonstrate and are not about how enthusiasm or passion is expressed.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. So we went back a little bit, asked you about your early career experience. Now I'm going to put you on the spot and have you look forward with all some of the things we talked about, the uncertainty and the discussions that are going on around racial equality and the work that we all need to do there. What's your advice for the leader of 2021? Let's say it's January 1, 2021 and going forward, even 6 months out from now. How does that person have to be different than the pre-pandemic leader of 2020?
Continue to raise yourself for the hard things. We don't know what's around the corner. But what we do know is that we have relationships with people. We did a simple survey a few weeks ago and asked, what are the leadership qualities most important right now? And not surprisingly, they were all relational in nature. Every single response we got was relational in nature. The number one leadership skill that emerged was empathy. Number 2, communication. 3, vision. 4, resilience. So I've thought a lot about the combination of those things. And even if you think about empathy and resilience, there's a bit of a tug of war there, isn't there? Because people are in challenge, and so you want to push them to power through. But with empathy, it's important that you meet them where they are and not jump over the pain or the hurt. So that would be my guidance. That's what I've really been trying to take on as a leader, is balancing meeting my team and listening to them and keeping us moving in the future of our vision. So, because for most organizations, while the strategies and the tactics shift, I heard a stat recently, 83% of all businesses have changed their strategy and tactics, but the vision doesn't change. Our vision of equipping leaders has never been more important, but how we do that changes. So that's the resilience for me. Stay focused on the longer term and then meet people where they are along the way.
Yeah, I'll throw another number out at you. And in the survey we released just a couple of weeks ago, kind of an economic recovery survey, well, it surprised me a little bit. The finding was, when asked what are some of the differences going forward, leaders, over 60% said they're looking at changing their business model to adapt to the current situation. Seemed like a tremendously high number, but combines right in with what you're saying about how individuals have to adapt if the company's going to be changing its model.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that just reinforces the uncertainty that we talked about. And leaders stepping into the challenge. It's a call for leadership anytime there's a change like that.
So, Andrea, when you're not being enthusiastic and passionate about the work you do, what do you like to do in your spare time?
No, I am always up for an adventure. So we love to travel. I had all kinds of travel plans this year. So we've had to be creative and come up with new adventures. We as a family, we love to be outside, riding bikes, paddle boarding, hiking, just being outside is always fun for us. And I do get so much energy from my work that I now spend a lot of time on the weekends podcasting, preparing those, writing those, researching those, recording those. So that has become a hobby as well as work that I do. And then the final thing is I love to cook. This being on quarantine has reminded me of that. And we're having a lot of fun with new recipes. And I don't know if my family would call it fun, but I think it's fun trying new things.
Well, in our last episode, previous guest talked about how he likes to make ice cream at
Oh,
home. So if you're
nice.
cooking kind of the meal and then he's making the ice cream,
Perfect.
I think I could set myself up here pretty good.
There you go. You are welcome anytime, Tom.
All right. Last question I have, we've asked everybody in season 3, and we're nearing the end of season 3 of the In Chamber. The question is, what does success mean to you? And it's, you can think about it from a professional standpoint. You can think about it personally. Obviously, it's a topic that you touch on in your work and in dealing and working with clients. But if I put you on the spot and say, what does success mean to Andrea Butcher? How would you respond?
I love that question. The first thing that came to mind is that I'm living my values. So we, in our leadership development, we spend a lot of time helping leaders get really clear on their leadership philosophy. And a big part of that is clarifying their personal values. So I work to model that. And I have my values in front of me always. They're here in front of in this binder right here. Empowerment, integrity, connection, and joy are my 4 core values. And so for me, at the end of the day, if I have integrated those into my interactions and my work, I've empowered someone, I've led with integrity, I've connected in some way, and I'm experiencing joy, that's pretty good. That's success.
Excellent.
There are lots of days when I fall down and I fall down hard.
So that makes the days where you can experience all 4 of those, all the more special.
Yes. And the success, I think, is driving towards those and keeping those top of mind.
All right. Andrea Butcher, thank you so much for joining us, for all the work you do as a chamber board member, an active committee member, and your work with your clients. Best of luck with everything going forward.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you in the chamber. We have been members of the chamber for many, many years, and I've been so grateful to be on the board now for a couple of years. And those relationships are really key to my success as a leader. The resources that the chamber provides are so helpful. I know that if I'm in doubt or if I'm challenged around a business issue, I can go to the chamber and there's going to be lots of resources for me. So thank you and thank the chamber, Tom.
All right. Thanks again, Andrea. I want to point out a couple things before we close out. Certainly the chamber continuing our virtual training events through the rest of July and August. One of those programs upcoming is the Leadership Challenge virtual workshop with HRD Advisory Group. That program has been rescheduled for July 30th, 31st, so there's still an opportunity for you to participate in that, along with a variety of other HR and other programs. Our conferences and events also include as we've mentioned previously, the Best Places to Work program, which will be a virtual celebration on August the 24th. You can get the latest information on all those programs at indianachamber.com. We will be back in 2 weeks with our final episode of season 3. We'll take a short break then and then return in early September with some more conversations. Until the next time, thanks for listening to the In Chamber.